Hi guys, welcome back to another video, and today I want to do like a get ready with me while talking about like friendship in the Bible and making wise decisions when choosing them, and how to go about like when God is like telling like sometimes like why God is telling you to remove friends from your life. And this is speaking from personal experience. I've gone through this over like the past few years and some recently, because like when I was first coming to Christ, like I had to like get rid of some of my old friends and stop being friends with them because honestly some of them were like really bad. And like the first verse I want to go into, like I'm gonna do my makeup a little, I'm gonna read a little, it's gonna be like, I don't know, 10-20 minute video max, and it's gonna be kind of topical, so we're gonna go like verse to verse like in different parts of the Bible, but it's not just gonna be all like one section. So the first verse is in 1 Corinthians 15, chapter 15, verse 33, and it's, "Do not be deceived, evil company corrupts good habits." And this is important to know because when you're friends with certain people, they can really corrupt you. Like you might not even think about it, but like certain friends that you have, like you can start to adapt their habits, especially like it's way easier to adapt bad habits than it is good habits. Like let's say you're really good and you're doing nice things, and let's say your friend's gossiping a little, even if you're not gossiping with them. Let's say one day they happen to gossip about a bad person or somebody that you don't like, and then you're like, you start gossiping with them. It's really easy to be tempted into that because you already don't like that person. So you're like, oh, like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, they're a bad person anyways. Then you start defending your actions and you can become a bad person, and you're allowing them to corrupt you and your morals. Like, yes, you make the choices and you are responsible for the choices you make, but being around those people can definitely tempt you. And sometimes in life you have to walk away from temptation. And it can be really hard sometimes, especially like I know some people say, well, like we've been friends for a long time. Like I've had a friend that I had for like, I knew them from 8 and I stopped talking to them around 14, 15. Like, so we knew each other like 7, 8 years. Okay. And like, they were just a really bad person. Like, not that they can't become better, but like, they weren't ever admitting of like the bad things that they did. They would always do like talk about our other friends or flex that they were sinning and doing all these bad things. And even though at first it didn't really correct me, like I started adapting some of those habits, like gossiping and just talking really rudely to people and becoming this mean person that I shouldn't have been and doing things that I shouldn't have done. And it's honestly like, not being her friend had to be about like having better judgment for me, because it really like being her friend really corrupted my judgment at the time. Like I did like bad things. I walked away from my relationship with God because she would constantly make fun of me for that. And I was a lot younger at the time, so it was like it bothered me a lot more. But like it all happened so fast too. Like I didn't even notice it at first that I was adapting her like habits until like middle school, which is around the time we stopped talking, because like at that time I really realized like I really allowed this person's actions to make me a bad person and make me do bad things, and I've allowed them to like their bad actions to change my character. And I used like, oh well, they did this to me, so it's okay that I did this back, when it's really not. Like we shouldn't really try to get revenge, because vengeance is God's. I don't remember what verse that is. When I find that, I'll put it up. But vengeance is God's. And no matter what we do, we can't try and defend that. And there's another verse I want to read. I have it marked off. Like with our friends, we should want friends who like uplift us and like push us towards God. Like I have a friend, like she is like so brutally honest, but she always tells you what you need to hear and not always what you want to hear. She really does care about all her friends, and she is a very good person, and I love her so much because she's always like uplifting the people she's around. She's always trying to be encouraging and do the right thing. And those are the type of friends you want to have, like the friends who are willing to tell you when you're doing the wrong thing and when you're messing up, the friends who are there for you when you need them. And some people won't appreciate friends like that. Like, sometimes we have to be that friend who's like brutally honest, and it can be like really hard to wait, give me a second. It can be really hard to tell when your friend's doing a bad thing, because sometimes you want to be like on their side, and sometimes you want to make them happy, but sometimes you need to tell them like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. And a verse that I have is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 11. It's therefore comfort each other and edify one another, just as you are also doing. And when we talk with these friends, like when I talk with her, I feel like, not all the time, like yeah, sometimes we can mess up and say bad things, but overall our conversations are pretty edifying, and it's like a really good breath of fresh air when I talk to her, because it's very good, like, if that makes sense. Like, it's very nice to talk to her, because I can always trust that like she has good judgment, and I can always trust that she, like, when she gives me advice, it's in my best interest. Like, she really does care about the people she's talking to and really tries to do the right thing by God. Here, let me put this up, because I don't need this anymore. It's getting kind of messy. You need to see my blush. I'm running out of blush. I need to buy some more soon. But anyways, and with her, something else that is edifying as Christians, and something that we need to be doing as friends, is like holding each other accountable. Like, holding each other accountable is so important as Christians, because sometimes you want to be like, oh, well, it's okay because they're working on it and they're trying. Like, they're a Christian, they make mistakes too. And yeah, but sometimes people don't even realize the things that they are doing are bad until somebody tells them, because they might think like, oh, it's okay, because sometimes the people that they are hanging around do those things, and nobody corrects that person they're hanging around, so they're like, oh, maybe I should do this. And that's another thing about bad company. Like, the reason why you can start to adapt bad habits is because when you see them getting the consequences for what they do, you start to be like, oh, well, maybe I can do that too, because they're not getting in trouble for that. And overall, that's why it's good to be wise about the people you're hanging around, especially like even if they are a Christian. Like, you should obviously tell them about God, like warn them of like what can go wrong with what they're doing, but you also want to be very mindful of the fact that like I lost my train of thought. You want to be very mindful of the fact that like just because somebody is a Christian does not mean that they are good for you. Because sometimes people can claim to be Christians and lie about it, and some people can be Christians and not be on the right path. And like, yes, you can warn them and everything, but it's not good to just sit there and adapt their habits when they're going under. Like, yeah, like you should edify and still love on them and everything, but if it's starting to change you and pull you into what they're doing, it's not good to be around them that much. Yeah, I use a lot of this stuff because whenever I use setting spray and setting powder, this stuff, like, yeah, it's a good mist, like, and it works really well, but like sometimes it doesn't hit all the areas, so I have to like go in and make sure that there's no like white powder spots. It's a lot. Okay, we have more verses. All the rest of the verses are in Proverbs. So, and this is more about, like, this part is more about accountability and holding your friends accountable. So, to start, like, a good Christian friend, when you hold them accountable, they normally will, like, a wise friend would normally be like, okay, obviously I need to work on this, and be open and accepting to learning. Like, and if you're not that way, you should work on that, because the Bible talks about how it's wise to be open to learning. Like, if you're not open to learning from other Christian friends, how are you going to be open to learning from God? If you're not open to learning from God, how are you going to learn from other people? You know what I mean? Also, I look crazy because my face is so wet. But, like, you have to be open to learning in all situations. And even if it makes you feel bad about yourself because you did something bad, sometimes you have to just be like, you know what, I did that. and choose to do better, because I used to be like a really bad person in middle school. Like I used to be really mean sometimes because I was getting bullied and stuff, but I allowed the bullies to change my actions and make me a bad person, and I shouldn't have. And at the end of the day, I realized what I did wrong, and I apologized to the people I apologized to, like that I hurt. And instead of just apologizing and trying to slap a band-aid on it, I was like, you know what, I'm actually going to change. So I changed my ways, and I made sure to really pay attention to how I was treating people after that. And it was a lot easier for those people to forgive me because I did the right thing. Like I showed them, like, I'm going to change, I'm going to be better, and I'm going to be a lot nicer. And that's how you, if you're going through something where you feel like somebody's not forgiving you, you have to, like, sometimes you have to really get down and make sure that you're changing. Also, like, my voice hurts. I just woke up and this is a lot of talking, but it's okay. And yeah, so a lot of the verses in Proverbs talk about being open to learning, and how like it's wise to want to learn from others, especially, and how like the wise people will be open to hearing advice and hearing rebuke. I couldn't find the exact verse. When I find it, I'll put it right here. But you have to be open to hearing rebuke and stuff like that, because as Christians, we're not perfect or anything, but we do need to try to be like Christ-like. And if we're not open to hearing what's wrong with us, we can't be Christ-like, because we're not going to be open to hearing what God has to say if we're not able to hear it from one person on earth. And you have to be open to hearing that stuff. So in a second, I'll read the verse, because yeah. Okay, so the first verse is Proverbs chapter 15, verse 32, and is he who disdains instruction despises his own soul, but he who heeds rebuke gets understanding. I did find the verse. I just didn't know, because I read it from another translation, then highlighted it. Okay, I did find one of the verses that talk about rebuke. So people who don't like instruction and like advice, like they get mad when you try and give them advice or try to help them out, those people don't care about themselves. Like they don't care about their own soul, because they're not trying to change their ways. They just want to live in their wicked ways. And as Christians, if we're like that, we're doing bad things and we're sinning when we do stuff like that. Because if we're not open to hearing what we did wrong and trying to become a better person, I'm gonna have to use like a towel. I can look so oily. But if we're not open to hearing things and trying to become better people, then how, like, we can't be truly repentant. If you're not able to be like, you know what, I did that, and admit it, you can't truly be repentant, because you're not saying, God, I did this and I'm truly sorry. Like when you apologize, you have to admit what you've done, or else it's not really a real apology. So if you're not really repentant, it's not like, you know what I mean? And I just got a DoorDash notification. So many distractions today. In Proverbs chapter 19, verse 20, it says, listen to counsel and receive instruction that you need to be wise in your latter days. And the Bible, it repeats like things like this over and over again in Proverbs. So I chose like 3 verses. But when the Bible repeats something, it's obviously important. And that's why we need to make sure that we're being wise and listening to instruction and listening to rebuke. Because yeah, sometimes it's never, okay, it's never going to feel good to hear rebuke or hear about yourself. You're never going to like the truth. The truth hurts, and that's a real thing. It's never going to be something that you're like, yes, I love this. Like, I love being told that I'm a bad person. Nobody loves that. But what you have to accept is that you did a bad thing, and maybe you were a bad person and you hurt a lot of people, and that you need to change. You need to truly apologize and truly admit everything you've done. Because you can, if you apologize for one thing, but you don't apologize for the other thing that you did, it kind of makes like people uneasy and makes them more hurt, because they can't trust you really, because they still feel like you're not truly apologizing, because you're it feels like you're maybe lying or trying to cover up the other things you did when you're not fully apologizing. Like, yeah, everything I did was bad. Period, point blank. Like, making excuses after apologizing or trying to, like, kind of go back on it isn't apology. Like, you want to be like, well, I apologized once, but it's not a real apology, and it doesn't make people feel better. And that's something that we as Christians, like, when we mess up and we're trying to, like, work things out with other Christians, we need to make sure that we're having genuine apologies and truly feeling regretful for what we did, like, truly apologizing. And you may be like, well, I don't want to feel like a bad person forever, like, it's not fair, blah, blah, blah. But yes, they should forgive you at some point, but when you try to cover things up that you made people feel, it doesn't change anything. When you're like, well, I did all these good things, it doesn't change anything, because you can cover it up. Like, okay, let's say you cut yourself, like, a deep wound, and you just slap a Band-Aid on it. Number one, most wounds need air, which can be, like, time, okay? Time. And if you cover it up, you're not really healing it. You're just hiding it. And so that's why it's very important to not cover it up and allow it the time and air it needs to heal. Because when you cover those things up, it can cause more hurt sometimes. Like, sometimes if you wear Band-Aids for too long, it can actually be bad for you, especially if they get wet and stuff. Like, you can get infections, like the sunburn. Not all the time, but it can happen. So, like, when you're covering up what you did, it can just have someone grow resentment for you. Like, for me, I have a friend who kind of did that to me. And while, yes, I forgive them, it's like I'm slowly having, like, resentment towards them because they weren't truly sorry. Like, especially because it happened so many times, like, over and over again, and we had the same conversation 5 times. They said, I'm sorry, like, I'll change, like, I'll do better, blah, blah, blah. And they still wouldn't do better, and they still wouldn't change. And it took, like, so long for them to decide they wanted to change. And for me, it was, like, tiring. And it's really hard to just forgive them because I'm kind of mad at them, like, deep down. Like, I really have resentment towards them because it's like, you don't care. And it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And I'm trying to work on that. Like, I've been praying about that. Like, God, remove that from my heart. But, like, it's really hard to do that when somebody is just trying to cover up what they did instead of just admitting it. And that's why it's important. Next verse. I need to drink water. My throat hurts so bad. It's not on this page. Or actually it was. Oh, here. It's important to not be friends with people who get angry and get mean when, like, you're trying to give them advice and stuff like that. Not only advice, but when they're just angry in general all the time. You should not want to be friends with angry people. And the Bible talks about this in Proverbs 22, verse 24 through 25. It says, make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go, lest you will learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. Okay. And that's important because when you, again, like, when you become friends with these bad people, and that kind of goes along with the first thing, I should have threw that in. I didn't remember that one, but that's important because when you become friends with these angry people, you can adapt their behaviors. And that's why sometimes it's important to let go, no matter how long you've known them, no matter how close you are, no matter what you've shared with them. That might be scary and stuff, but sometimes you have to say, this isn't good for me. This isn't good for my relationship with God. And I have to let this go. Because I feel like it's a lot easier, like, when you're dating somebody to, like, just let go. But when it's with friends, it can be kind of hard to be like, you know what? I need to let go of this friend. I need to move on. I need to find someone who really cares about me and really wants, like, to have edifying conversations and just be a godly person. And not to say that you shouldn't minister to other people and that you can't have non-Christian friends, because I have friends who aren't Christian, but you also have to be wise about doing certain things. Like, you shouldn't adapt their ways. Like, if you're friends with a non-Christian person and all they do is cuss and you find that tempting you to cuss, you should not be their friend. Even if you feel like you need to minister to them, you need to work on that and like make sure that you're praying enough to not adapt those behaviors, and make sure that when they do those things, be like, hey, can you not do that around me, and stuff like that. And it can be hard, and I know it's like easier said than done when it's talking about like just removing friends from your life, but sometimes it can be easy. And like at the end of the day, like once you remove them, you're not really gonna feel super sad. You're gonna be like, man, like, cause like especially if you have to remove them to grow closer to God, you're gonna be a lot happier at the end when you're like really close with God than if you had stayed friends with them. And sometimes it's worth losing people for God. And yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. It was just like a little topical. That was like my Bible study for this morning because we didn't go to church. But yeah, I'm gonna try to post more Christian content soon because I feel like it helps me stay in my Bible and like kind of think and dwell on like what actually am I reading. So I will be coming out with more videos like this soon. I think I'm gonna start posting during the summer when I can. I will post 2 times a week, and it'll be like, one will be a Christian post and then the other will be like miscellaneous, like vlogs, hauls, all that stuff. So I think I'm gonna post this either Monday or Tuesday, so you'll have this soon. There's not a lot of editing I have to do with these types of videos, so it's easy content, and I do feel like it's important to me. Like this is content that I hold dear to my heart. So I do think I'm gonna keep doing this, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you have like any other comments or verses that you want to add, you can comment them down below. And thanks so much for watching. Bye.